What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ro. I'm so excited you decided to join me for another 4K. 4K means 4 minutes of kingdom. I'm dissecting words that we don't normally think about or talk about that God uses for us to understand kingdom a little better. So I'm going to start off like this. Religion separates and isolates, but kingdom engages. God looks at yeast as engagement, right? So the number one thing I wrote down was the first thing is yeast is inactive when it is sealed in the package. It cannot do its work until it is released into the dough. It is the same way with us. We cannot exert our kingdom influence if we isolate ourselves from the world by staying within the four walls of our homes, our church buildings. We have to inject ourselves into the dough of the world if we are to do any good. And I'm going to just scoot along. I just want y'all to write this down. Get your pen and paper and write this stuff down. Secondly, yeast by itself looks helpless and insufficient. Once released, however, its influence far exceeds its initial outward appearance. In the same way, the most effective way we can be yeast in our culture is not to be loud, flashy, and flamboyant, but quiet, assuming, yet faithfully, consistently, and steadily living and promoting the kingdom day by day. Number three, yeast is not intimidated. Listen to this one. This is a good one. Yeast is not intimidated by the size of the dough. When I used to watch my grandmother bake, and when they poured the yeast in, it was just a little portion of yeast, right? And then everything else is a lot of. But the yeast consumes everything, right? So that's what that means. Yeast is not intimidated. It's so small. It's not intimidating. Don't care how big it is, right? By the size of the dough. The dough is bigger than the yeast, right? That tiny yeast will look at the batch of dough and say, I can eat you for lunch. So think about a lion. When a lion is in the jungle, right? The lion looks at the giraffe, the elephant, not as a opponent, but it looks at it like, you're my dinner. So it's about the attitude of the yeast that God is trying to make you see here. It's about the attitude of the people of the kingdom we're supposed to have. He ain't intimidated by the size of the dough, right? He looks at it like, I could eat you for lunch. It doesn't matter where God put you, how tough your situation looks, or how great your challenge appears to be. As kingdom citizens, with the Holy Spirit, the governor living in you and me, you always have the edge. I ain't scared of none of you. And last one, yeast is not influenced by dough, but the dough is influenced by the yeast. Yeast never becomes dough, but dough becomes yeast. Permitted with yeast transforming effects. In the same way, through kingdom engagement, the kingdom never becomes like the world, but the world like the kingdom. We're looking too much like the world. God is trying to say, listen, I gave this demonstration of yeast because I want you to know how powerful you are. Your size doesn't mean anything. You have to be engaged in community. In order to affect change, we have to be engaged. So be yeast. Thank you for joining me.